Well, our next guest speaker has already been mentioned. Let me tell you a little bit of something about him. In the 1980s, he was the color commentator on many of Marvelous Marvin Hagler's biggest fights on closed-circuit television. Following Marvin's retirement in 1987, they became good friends, and a few years back, he even inducted Marvelous Marvin Hagler into the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. Just a few years ago, he released a memoir, 30 Years, 30 Undeniable Truths about sports, boxing, and broadcasting, where he recounted his first 30 years as a sports commentator. One of the anecdotes in that book was that at one time in the 1980s, he was broadcasting a nationally televised fight card on ESPN live from Brockton, Massachusetts. A rather rambunctious crowd, perhaps fueled by alcohol, started to hurl derogatory curse words at him as soon as he went on the air. Brockton, let's give him something else to write about in this next book. He's the present-day color commentator for Showtime Championship Boxing. A warm City of Champions welcome for Al Bernstein.
But I don't hold a grudge. No, they had fun that night. They were having fun. Hey, first of all, I'm honored. Thank you to Stephen for those very kind words. I appreciate that. I'm honored to be here with his family and lovely mom, and with all these great boxing dignitaries that are here, and all of you who have taken time out of your life to come here and honor the memory of Marvelous Marvin Hagler, who's an extraordinary man. Well, on the evening of April 15th, 1985, I was in a boxing ring at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas after I had just announced the amazing fight between Marvelous Marvin Hagler and the great Tommy Hearns, who is here today. Yep. And Marvin, during the course, and I was interviewing Marvin Hagler, and in that interview, Marvin looked at me and said with a straight face, "You know, I think we fought pretty well tonight. I hope everybody got their money's worth." Only Marvin would say that. And I said, you know, I'm pretty sure that everybody got their money's worth. And in fact, that's kind of a metaphor for Marvin, because throughout his life, both in and out of the ring, he gave the world their money's worth. Stephen alluded to something about Marvin that I think is really, really important. You know, we've already heard adjectives about him, and we're going to hear some more as the program moves on. And some of them are adjectives that have a lot of flourish to them. But one that it doesn't sound like it's heaping praise on somebody, but it really is consistency. Marvin Hagler was the most consistent, dependable person that you would ever come in contact with. I mean, think about it. One weight division his whole career, one group of trainer managers, Pat and Goody Petronelli, for his whole career, one promoter for virtually all of his career, and one mindset about the sport of boxing, that you have to be prepared and ready to get the job done. And from the moment he laced up his gloves for the very first time to the last time, that was his mindset. You know, he approached boxing with integrity and purpose. And I think he did the same with life. And if we're looking for a couple of words to describe him, the best ones I can think of after, you know, almost 40 years of interacting with him, he was honest, straightforward, and loyal. I mean, that's what describes him as a person. And I think you won't get anybody arguing with you about that in the sport of boxing. And if anything could show us that that's true, take this story. During the period of time when Marvin was thinking about whether he should retire after the phenomenal fight he had with John Mugabe, or take the Sugar Ray Leonard fight that was starting to be offered to him, Pat Petronelli went and met with him, and Pat told Marvin that he and Goody had had a chat and that they felt that it was fair if they would cut their fee by 50% for this fight, because it would be fairer for Marvin in terms of the overall financial part of it. And Marvin looked at him, pounded the table, got angry, and said, "I don't want to hear a word of that." He said, "If I take this fight, you're taking your full amount, and I won't fight." Now, not too many human beings are going to act that way. It speaks to who the Petronellis were, but of course it speaks to who Marvin Hagler was. He was loyal and honorable to everybody that he worked with. Things weren't always handed to him. In fact, they were never handed to him. As Stephen alluded to, he waited too long, longer than he should have, to get a world title shot. When he got it, the judges robbed him of the decision and delivered what might be the worst decision in the last 50 years or 60 years in boxing. Yeah. And then even when he won the championship, it was sullied a little bit by the behavior of the British fans on that particular night, which, by the way, is something that I've talked to many great boxing fans from Great Britain, and that is a huge mountain of guilt that they carry around with them because some hooligans did that, because they appreciate Marvin Hagler as does everyone else. And even during his career, after he did get an opportunity and win the world championship, there were still moments when judges would hand in scorecards that didn't look quite right. And so the level of respect sometimes wasn't there from the boxing hierarchy. But at the end of the day, he persevered because of his indomitable spirit and the fact that he simply would not be stopped. And nothing was going to prevent him from being as successful as he was. And so he got past all those obstacles. The last time I saw Marvin was several years ago at the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. And I was the MC of the evening, and I was also tasked with giving the speech to induct him into the Hall of Fame. And during that weekend, I had a lot of time to socially interact with Marvin, which sometimes, you have a chance to do at events like that. And at one point, we were sitting, I was sitting at a table with him at one of the cocktail parties, and I was sitting, on my left was my sister who manages me, and on her left was Marvin. And the three of us were there, and for a little while, I was talking to somebody off on my right, for about 20 minutes, actually, and my sister was talking to Marvin. The two of them were conversing. And at one point, somebody taps me on my arm, and it's Marvin. And I turn over to him, and he puts his arm around my sister, and he says, I just realized something. He said, she knows more about boxing than you do. Of course, it's been hard for me to forgive him for that because my sister brings it up about every 5 days. But I have forgiven him. The night of that induction to the Hall of Fame, which I know you were at, and his family was at, and it was a very emotional evening. I think Marvin probably showed more emotion publicly than he ever has in a public setting, wouldn't you say? And it was just amazing to watch him. And during the course of that speech, he said something that rings out to me today. He said he promised his grandfather that people would know his name, Hagler. Well, not only do people know his name, the world knows the name Hagler. So you can mark that down as a promise kept. And that's one of many promises that Marvin Hagler kept to his fans, to the sport of boxing, to his family, and to his friends. And I'm so happy that I got a chance to come and participate in this, because he was a special guy. And during those early years in the 80s, when I interacted with him, and it was very early in my career, and the way he treated me was warm, it was fair, and I got to know him as a man during that time, and he made an indelible impression on me. And in the time after his boxing career, that continued. So, very special human being, and I'm thrilled to have been here to help share these stories about his memory, and may he rest in peace, and my warm feelings go out to the whole family. And I'm going to miss him, as everybody does, but we celebrate what he accomplished. Thank you.